Will you work with those of us who want to raise the federal minimum wage to a living wage to take millions of Americans out of poverty?
Senator, I believe that the minimum wage is more of a statewide and regional issue.
So you don't think we should change the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour?
No, sir.
That is Scott Bessent, Trump's pick to be Treasury Secretary, and Trump chose him, and he's a billionaire. And so when Bernie asked him, do you think we should raise the minimum wage? I was on the edge of my seat. Oh, what's he gonna say? And I was as shocked as everyone to find out that he doesn't actually think it's a priority. So anyway, I just wanna remind everyone, if you work a full-time job, you are doing what the right says you're supposed to do. Republicans constantly attack people like, you need to get out there, you need to work. Okay, so you're working 40 hours a week, all year. If you're making this minimum wage, that amounts to $15,080. And perhaps there's some remote corner of the country where you can live on that. If there is, I don't know what it is or where it is. But anyway, he's doing well. I checked into it. He doesn't make the federal minimum wage. He makes a little bit more, actually. He's an investor and a hedge fund manager. He recently disclosed assets worth at least $521 million. But as I'm sure you've seen in these disclosures, the disclosures are always massive ranges. So it is clear that he has potentially $5, $6, $8 billion to his name. And so if he becomes Treasury Secretary, he's not gonna waste his time raising the minimum wage or anything. That's just for the poor, that's just for the peasants. So what does he actually want to do? Well, here he is talking about his true passion.
This is the single most important economic issue of the day. This is pass fail. That if we do not fix these tax cuts, if we do not renew and extend, then we will be facing an economic calamity. And as always, with financial instability, that falls on the middle and working class people. We will see a gigantic middle class tax increase. We will see the child tax credit halved. We will see the deductions halved. So it will be what we call in economics, it has the potential for a sudden stop. And as I said, traditionally with these sudden stops, it falls on working Americans.
Okay, so his true passion is continuing the Trump tax cuts, perhaps making them just permanent. On for the next 1,000 years, they'll be getting those tax cuts. And it's very important, and he's being very careful about the way he says it. I love the way he was like so slow, and he's like, we need to fix these tax cuts. He doesn't want to say, we need to make sure that rich a-holes like me continue to get massive paydays year after year, that we transfer wealth up to those with the most and put more of the tax burden on them. He's being very careful in that way. He's also lying quite a bit because he's saying there that if these don't continue, the burden will fall on the poor. See, he's not thinking about his own financial interests. He's thinking about you, because the poor did actually get a tax cut under this. And so if we jump to graphic 3, you'll see on average, they've gotten about a $70 tax cut a year. And think about how ruined they will be economically if they don't have it. Oh wait, there's a reference in that graphic a little bit earlier that those in the top 0.1% got 250 grand a year off of it. Well, I imagine that billionaires who are an even smaller percentile are probably doing even better than $500,000 that they get. So who actually would suffer to the extent that someone who's making millions of dollars a year can potentially financially suffer? I think it would actually be the wealthy there. And so, look, this is fear mongering. This is what they do. This is the point of electing Republicans into the presidency, of them taking over, is to transfer trillions of dollars to the wealthy. The economy inevitably falls apart. And then to recover, we elect a Democrat who comes in, makes difficult decisions that prove to be unpopular, so then they get tossed out just in time to bring another Republican in to renew the tax cuts. That's the point of all of this, of MAGA and the right-wing media and the trans panic and the migrant stuff, the caravans, they're eating your pets. Scott Bessent is there to manage the one thing that truly matters, which is the trillions upon trillions of dollars at stake for the wealthiest people in the country. So we'll have more, and I like that Bernie Sanders was mixing it up with him. But David, I want to start with you. What do you make about this? It's one of the nomination hearings that I think is drawing the least attention so far this week.
Well, John, I think you're actually spot on. And the fact is, if Scott Bessent was really concerned about middle class and working class finances, then he should be against the Donald Trump tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, because that's gonna impugn the buying ability of more Americans than any of these taxes ever could. So he should come out against the tax cuts. He should come out against the tariffs. If he's also concerned about, say, inflation, which he expressed some concern about, then he should also be against the government spending $85 billion, as Tom Homan, the border czar, wants to spend in order to round up migrant workers. $85 billion, by the way, that's more money than the government spends each year for the entire Department of Justice budget or the State Department budget. It goes on. And every time that the government adds a new program and puts money on the credit card, we are that much closer to not only inflation, but to having the economy collapse. So Mr. Bessent, maybe he really is concerned about protecting the economy. He wants to avoid inflation. He wants to avoid a crash. But the way to do it is not to say, well, we've got to fix these, we got to make sure that these tax cuts continue. No, he should be saying, oh, the tariffs, that's just bluster, and we're not going to deport anybody. We're not going to have the shocks to the economy that most economists think. I would have loved to have heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the right has effectively and successfully rebranded trickle-down economics, because trickle-down economics, that's not really a sexy term anymore, but they're giving blatant benefits to the wealthiest people in the country unapologetically, and they're not hiding it much, John. Like, he's picking his words a little bit, but not a whole lot. And I would love to hear more. I would love to hear him elaborate on how he thinks that tax cuts on the rich would prevent an economic catastrophe, whatever he called it, catastrophe or something like that, he said. He didn't go into a whole lot of details apart from the idea that it would be too abrupt of a change from what we're already doing, so it would be too destabilizing. But the diminishing of the middle class is one of the biggest indicators of pending financial and economic disruption in a country, and it will be very difficult to recover from. The middle class is barely hanging on as it is. And to that point, the fact that he would be unwilling as a Treasury Secretary to even consider increasing the national minimum wage really shows how much he actually cares about those lower and middle class people.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I would have loved to have heard someone of the hearings just ask him, hey, so you're apparently an expert in the economy and all that. So who pays for tariffs? Like, when the foreign government has to pay more money, what do? They absorb that? I want you to say that you think they absorb that. Say a really stupid thing directly into the camera so that we can quote you someday. Unfortunately, nobody asked him that exact question. But yeah, look, this is, as I said, this is the priority. When they pass those tax cuts, and like David said, do these tariffs that are going to utterly decimate those at the lowest rungs of the economic ladder. Like, they got $70 in a tax cut. The estimates are that they're gonna end up paying at least $2,500 more from the effect of the tariffs on inflation. Any objective observer knows that that's politically going to be wildly damaging to the administration that does all that. I feel very confident saying that if we have elections as we've been accustomed to in this country in 4 years, how can you possibly win re-election after doing to the economy what they're planning to do? It's going to do terrible damage. It's going to do terrible political damage to them, which is a reminder of how important this is to them, how much money we're talking about them getting, that they would be willing to set fire to their chances of winning the next presidential election just to get this one bill. And that's my read. We'll see, maybe it won't work out that way. We're living in crazy times, but that's the way it feels right now.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.